End of October 2024, I'm gonna do a little, lesson from Tony Robbins, one of my favorites and one of the most impactful lessons, when he talks about living an extraordinary life. Living an extraordinary life means that you come and you live from an extraordinary state. And Tony Robbins always talking about the state, your state, the state of being, the state of emotions, everything that you have here. And really, when you talk about an extraordinary state, what is that? That is an elevated state. It is an elevated attitude. Okay, so if you think about it, think about the days when you've been tired or sad or feeling depressed and you're how productive are you? And then think about those days where everything's just going right and you're feeling great. You're feeling on top of the world. You feel like you can conquer the world. I mean, that's an elevated state. How much more do you get done? How much more effective are you when you come from an elevated state? And I love this is really how Tony Robbins has built his massive legacy. Is he's saying that those extraordinary states for most people, they just happen, and they happen as a result of everything around you, their environment around them and the circumstances around them. So, but the thing is, you have the power, the personal power, the power within to actually manifest your own state just about all the time. That's massively powerful. If you can wrap your head around that, that's massively powerful. If we can't have the power inside of us to manifest, to make real an elevated state, an extraordinary state, how much more effective would we be in life? If I can immediately transform my state from low energy, low state to an elevated state, and I can do it instantly in just about any circumstance, how much more effective would I be? And it doesn't matter what you're trying to do, whether it's have a relationship with someone, maybe it's taking care of your kids, whether it's at work, your interaction, it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. You will always perform better from an elevated state. Everything about you is the same. Your skill set's the same. Your knowledge is the same. But from an elevated state, you always will have a better result or more result. Okay, so the question is, how do you elevate your state? How do you switch and go from to and perform better? That's the key, right? And so one of Tony Robbins' great sayings is that motion creates emotion, right? Or emotion comes from motion. And this simple concept, if you wrap your head around it, is so powerful. Emotion comes from motion. And he always says, we don't have an emotion, we do emotions, right? We don't have emotions, we actually do emotions. This is and we do it so subconsciously, and this is the danger. We do it subconsciously, and therefore we think we don't have any control over it. But we actually do. We have a ton of control over our emotions through the motions. Okay, so what are the motions? The motions are, there's, a couple aspects. There's the physical aspect of it, okay? And you can think about it, because if you think about I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling depressed. If you were to imagine someone who is sad and depressed, and you imagine them, what do they look like? Do they have maybe shoulders slumped a little bit? Maybe their head down, right? And their eye gaze is probably down, right? Maybe they have their hands folded or their hands crossed, yeah? The other aspect of this is language. And there are two types, there are different parts of language. The words you say are one thing, and I actually talked about that on another video. So I'm going to put words over here because those are important, but there are other parts of language. There is the tone and the pace in which we use language. Again, words are important, but the tone and the pace are equally as important. Let's go back to my depressed example. Here I am depressed. What is the tone and the pace that I speak? Huh? I mean, you think about it, that person who's depressed, or maybe you're depressed. I'm willing to bet that your tone is low, that your pace is slower. That maybe your tone is such that it's hard to hear. You're not projecting, right? You're kind of like over here. That's this. I don't know. I guess. I don't really want it. But then this happened. Yeah. Yes? Huh? Am I right? Yeah, of course I'm right, because this is how everyone behaves when they are depressed, when they're sad. Now, let's flip that. Someone who is over the moon, excited for life, ready to tackle the day, like, bring it, I got whatever it takes, I'm ready to go. How is that presented? Can you get it? Are you getting it? I'm here. This is how I try to be in my day every day, how I elevate my state. But you think about it, my tone is loud. My pace is fast. I'm not reserved in my speech. Now, different people, different personalities. So you have your tone and pace that is your high elevation and your low, and your high state and your low state. You have your own. For me, this is my excitement. This is my elevated state. I know that when I'm in this state, when I'm excited, when I got ideas coming out faster than I could say them and produce them eloquently enough for people to understand. When I'm in that state, when I'm jumping around, when I have my shoulders back, my head up, and I feel good, that when I start doing all of this stuff, my emotions tend to go up because my emotion, right? All of this, it becomes congruent with what I believe I should be feeling when I act that way. Oh, did you guys just hear what I said? You can move your body in such a way, like your brain already knows how you should be physically when you're feeling something. You're like, okay, I feel this way. And so when I have my body will represent that feeling like this. Oh, but it goes the other way too. In other words, when I'm moving my body this way, like this, whatever it is, my brain interprets that and says, oh, you are feeling this. And therefore, if I change the way I'm using my body, let's go on this side, the way I'm moving my body, and I change the way I'm using my language, I can influence, and I don't want to say trick, but convince my mind that I feel a certain way. And it is interesting. I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but kind of. Yes, kind of. And what happens is, if you are not feeling good, you're feeling down, you're having a rough day, nothing's going right. See immediately how my physicality, my physiology is showing that? My eyebrows are down. Right? I'm like throwing it down, I'm like, my shoulders are forward when I'm doing it, right? So immediately when I start thinking about how I feel in that way, in that like sad, downtrodden, world is against me sort of way, I immediately start manifesting that in my physical body. And I immediately start speaking like I am there. It's amazing. But what if in the midst of that, I decide, I don't want to be sitting here. Like, it's okay to enter that when we enter all those different emotions all the time. But it really becomes a choice, especially now once you know that you can choose to stay in that state or change it. So I'm here and I'm like, you know what? And I'm like, no, you know what? I'm going to change it. I'm going to set my mind on something else. I'm going to stand upright. I'm going to put my shoulders back. I'm going to lift my head up. I'm going to smile. I don't feel like it, but I'm going to do it. And guess what? The brain has been shown that the brain will actually start changing when your body goes through a physical change. Your brain starts to understand that, digest that, and it begins to create an emotion. What is an emotion? It's a mysterious thing, but all of a sudden that feeling starts to impact you, starts to spread throughout, and pretty soon you are happy. Here's a great example. I'll give you a perfect example. Everyone's done this. Have you ever been in that grumpy, angry, I don't want to do it, and just like, state? And someone has the audacity to come around and then make you laugh when you're trying to be mad, and they say something, do something, tickle you, and you're just like, don't make me laugh. But you laugh anyway, and immediately, like so much tension releases from your body. And then sometimes you keep laughing and then you remember, oh wait, I'm supposed to be mad. And immediately your face scrunches up and you're like, I'm mad. Stop that, I'm mad. Like I gotta stay mad. You know what's happened, and you've probably done it to other people too, because you see a situation, they're upset about it, and it is a little silly, but you're on the outside. So it's silly to you. Real for them, but silly to you. And you say something, you joke around, and it breaks them. It cracks that shell, and all of a sudden they're laughing, even if it's just for a moment. There's the evidence that this motion can impact your emotion. This is a masterfully powerful tool, you guys, because absolutely 100%, when I come from an elevated state, an extraordinary state, whatever it is I set my mind to gets done at a high level. Where if I'm doing the same exact task and I come at it from a low state, a crappy state, my results for doing that task are going to be so much different and so much lower. And who wants to live like that? And the thing is, so many people live like that because they didn't they didn't grasp the concept that this is actually in our control. It all comes down to us making a decision to do something. Like we must decide what it is we want, and we go forth. And Tony Robbins talks about decide comes from the word incision, which comes from the word cut. So in other words, when you make a decision, you cut off the other possibilities. When you decide, make a real decision, a full commitment, a resolution, this is what it is no matter what. When you make a decision, there are no other options. And so this in itself is a decision. I can't tell you how many people I talked to when I tried to convince them or tried to show them, not convince them, try to show them that, hey, this is a real thing. Like you have control over your own emotions. Like right now, I see what you're doing and I see where you're living, and you actually have the power to come out of that. Okay? And for those people out there that want to come at me with any type of like, well, depression's a real thing and medication, I'm not even going to touch that. I agree. And yes, I believe medication can help on some level. I am talking about people who just have an overall low state, low energy, mentality that the world is against them, and they're just, and nothing's going right for them, and they're just stay there. Okay? And yes, that is let's just call that like short-term depression, right? As opposed to massive clinical depression. I'm not addressing that. So if you want a 2 cents that you got to throw at me because of clinical depression and medication, different. Okay, we're here because I've been through this where I've had days and even where I've extended to a week long of feeling low and feeling down. But then I've had other days and weeks where I've had such high feelings, such a roller coaster of emotions. And I think, and when I started realizing this, I started realizing, oh, I have the power to actually create that or control it so that I can be up and I can stay up. And I might have these little dips, but my dips are much smaller and they're higher. And I don't have to come crashing down because something bad happens around me. I mean, everyone gets stressed. Everyone has challenges. Everyone does. Everyone thinks that their challenges are just so big and so huge. And it's funny because when we look back, even at our own lives, we oftentimes will see the things that were so huge and we'll realize that they're actually not that big. They're big when you never done them, when you've never had to endure that, and you go through something, okay, and then when you come out on the other side, you have the wisdom and you have the experience to look back and you say, oh, that's how I can handle it. That's how I should have handled it. This is, I'm on the other side, so I see the other side. Whereas when you're on this side and you're pushing through, you don't actually see the other side. It's hard. I get it. But imagine whatever trial, whatever struggle, whatever challenge is in front of you, that if you approached it from an elevated state, from an extraordinary state, that if you approached it, how much better are your results going to be? How much faster will you plow through a problem? And it's everything is better from a high and elevated emotional state. Nothing in your life will suffer because you have a high state, except for this. All those other people that want to stay down here will stop hanging around with you. So you might lose some friends. But the thing is, the people that start hanging around, the new people start hanging around with you, are going to enjoy, feed off, and encourage that state. And it'll be easier to maintain it as well. Awesome. Thanks so much for listening. It's one of my favorite lessons from Tony Robbins. Love that guy. Changed my life and continues to change my life every day, every time I go through his material, every time I really just take a minute and let it permeate in my head. It's just awesome stuff. You guys have a blessed and awesome day.